There are moments in the Swiss Alps when the mountains are so spectacular, the views are so perfect, and the chalet town so idyllic that travel posters pale in comparison. Welcome to Switzerland, a rugged little country where cowbells jingle, alpine flowers scent the air, and mountain trails lead to bliss.
Switzerland's an easy place to holiday. With a great tourist infrastructure and unparalleled natural beauty, this country's a magnet for hikers, skiers, bikers, and plain old nature lovers. And as if the scenery wasn't enough, the well-preserved cities brimming with art and culture are as fascinating to explore as the mountain passes.
Small, landlocked Switzerland rests in the middle of Europe. We'll begin in the gorgeous Bernese Oberland region. With Interlaken as our launching point, we'll head to the resort town of Brienz, and then on to the scenic drama of the Schilthorn. Then it's off to vibrant Zurich for lots of shopping and a little tasty Swiss cuisine. Here in the Bernese Oberland, you get a concentration of rural Switzerland at its very best. Before the advent of tourism in these parts, agriculture defined life here, and its influence is still seen everywhere, from cows that dot the hillsides to local farmers baling hay. The Swiss can trace their identity back to the invading armies of Julius Caesar, who corralled their ancestors into lovely alpine real estate in the middle of Western Europe. With French, German, and Italian influences, the small Swiss states evolved into a self-reliant and democratic-minded lot. During the Middle Ages, the nonconformist Swiss clashed with powerful Holy Roman emperors. Their independent spirit is perhaps best embodied in the folk hero William Tell. As the story goes, when a haughty Habsburg officer by the name of Gessler demanded that William Tell remove his hat in tribute, the proud Tell refused to do so. Now, this next part you might already know. Tell was arrested, and by way of punishment was compelled to shoot an apple off his own son's head. Of course, Tell, being an expert Swiss marksman, hit the apple, and fortunately for his son, only the apple. The most convenient base for exploring this area is Interlaken. This attractive town is well laid out to meet the needs of its many visitors. From here, you can easily hike to Switzerland's most rewarding trails, ride mountain cable cars, and cruise crystal lakes. The name Interlaken means between two lakes, and so it's no surprise that the town sits between Lakes Thun and Brienz. Lake Brienz, directly east of Interlaken, is the smaller of the two and proudly gives harbor to this fine steamboat. The 89-year-old steamer has been carefully restored to carry passengers on this unforgettable ride across the water. Most North American visitors overlook this lake in favor of the more famous resorts on Thun, but the Swiss tend to prefer to vacation here. Surrounded by forested mountains on all sides, the lake has a wild, brooding lure. The boat docks in the town of Brienz. People have been living on this pretty site for the better part of 1,000 years. From town, we'll catch a ride on the Brienz-Rothorn Railway. Switzerland's oldest steam cog rail has been puffing its way up the Rothorn Mountain since 1892. The line, which resembles a giant model train set, is the only one of its kind in Switzerland. When most Swiss trains were electrified in the 1940s and 50s, railroad officials decided to preserve this one's steam operation. As you can see, the train traverses ruggedly beautiful scenery. The ride takes about an hour and gradually climbs to more than 7,000 feet above sea level. Ascending through lush alpine forests and peaceful meadows, the trip culminates in a grand mountain panorama. And if you're lucky, clear weather will give you a stunning view of the Bernese Oberland mountain range. Ever thought of renting your own cow?
Well, if you love cheese, you may be interested in this novel program. To get a personal touch that store-bought products can't offer, you can actually lease a cow that lives in its own alpine pasture.
Here's how it works. You pay a fee to a local farmer to lease one of his cows. But part of the deal is that you have to visit the cow at least once. Then, at the end of the season, all of the dairy products generated by your bovine buddy are shipped to you. Typically, that'll mean about 200 pounds of cheese, both soft and hard varieties, that you can collect in September and either sell or use as gifts. Back in Brienz, it's easy to see how the art of wood carving has put this town on the map. Sculpting wood is a centuries-old tradition in the Bernese Oberland. Early carvers took advantage of the area's plentiful forests to create a variety of interesting objects.
Really, the boost for the industry was tourism. About 200 years ago, about 1820, the first tourists came, and the people in Brienz who had a really tough life before of that found out that they could sell products to them.
A carver begins a new project by creating a plasticine model.
When he has the model, he goes to the stock where we have the wood, then he draws the outer line, then he goes to the bandsaw, and then he saws, the profile. And after that, actually, the real carving starts. In the beginning, of course, he carves with big chisels and with a hammer we call Schlegel.
Schlegel?
Schlegel, huh? And as it goes, the chisel's getting smaller and smaller and smaller until they're really tiny, and they do just the hair, the fur, the teeth, and the eyes, and so on. And he also, in the end, stains and paints it.
Switzerland's very famous for music boxes.
We actually are quite proud of our music boxes we produce. Since about 1860, we produce music boxes in Brienz here. We are the only company in the world, I think at the moment, who produce boxes and mechanical parts beneath one and the same roof.
You'll find more Swiss craftsmanship at the Ballenberg Open Air Museum. Open air museums are common in Europe, and this is one of the best. You'll see traditional houses and crafts from every corner of Switzerland. Many of the buildings were brought here for preservation because they were endangered at their original sites. You can peek over the shoulders of expert craftspeople and hear them explain time-honored techniques. Most of the handicrafts demonstrated in Ballenberg were long practiced by farm families to bring in extra money. Meager earnings from small plots of land meant farmers often needed additional sources of income. It's tempting to spend all day at the park, but there's lots more countryside to see.
Switzerland's efficient public transportation system makes it an excellent destination for independent travelers. With one of these Swiss travel system passes, you can easily move throughout the country by rail, boat, and inter-city lines. The passes offer a lot of flexibility, and you can choose from different options depending upon your itinerary.
Interlaken sits dreamily at the foot of some of the most famous mountains in the world, the Eiger, the Monk, and the Jungfrau. To get a closer look at these giants, we'll head from Interlaken out to the Lauterbrunnen Valley. There are several different cable cars that can transport you up the sheer mountain sides. We're heading toward the Schilthorn Peak. Our cable car soars over the breathtaking panorama of the Lauterbrunnen Valley, with its sparkling waterfalls and myriad mountain trails. Surrounded by unspoiled alpine loveliness, this may be the most spectacular glacial valley in all of Europe. The cable car drops us in Mürren, a charming resort town with, you guessed it, unbelievable views. After the First World War, a steady stream of British tourists made this a popular winter destination. Now it draws visitors year-round. Cars aren't allowed in Mürren, so it's a haven of fresh air and alpine serenity. Here we switch cable cars and ride even further up to the staggering heights of the Schilthorn. Across the valley, the area's three great peaks stand out in all their glory. Eiger means ogre. Monk is, well, monk. And Jungfrau means maiden. According to tradition, the monk protects the maiden from the advances of the ogre. To savor this magnificent scenery at your own pace, you can head back down the mountain on foot via the area's network of hiking trails.
A few things to keep in mind when exploring the Alps. Be sure to wear sturdy shoes. Also, it's best to wear several layers of clothing since temperatures will drop as you reach higher elevations. And take along sunglasses. Bright sunlight reflecting off snow isn't only annoying, it can harm your eyes.
People who are sensitive to heights may experience drowsiness or headaches at higher elevations, but the symptoms almost always disappear on the way down. Sparkling alpine glaciers have inspired a distinctive art form here, ice sculpting.
And first, when you carve, you have to get just to the major proportion.
Working from his studio in Interlaken, Bruno Henke has perfected the technique of transforming ice into frozen works of art.
Bruno, how did you get started in ice sculpture?
Well, you see, since I'm a pastry chef, and 90% of all the ice carvers around the world, there are pastry chefs or head chefs. You know, of chocolate, the sugar, whatever you take, stone, wood, each one material is so interesting, and you're really into it, you go for it. I inspire myself of the nature. Look at around here, beautiful place. And then the hardest part of ice carving, once you have the major cut done, then you have to bring the bird alive.
In addition to supplying sculptures for formal banquets, Bruno displays many of his pieces at an ice museum on the top of the Jungfrau. As you stroll back past the flower-framed doorways on Interlaken streets, a bit of accordion music may catch your ear. Here at the Schweitzer Urgeli shop, owner Peter Bruhin carries on the tradition of making a special kind of Swiss accordion. Accordions were invented in Austria and brought to Switzerland in the 1830s. A Swiss inventor fashioned a completely new model of accordion, which he called Schweitzer Urgeli, named for his home district. With a few refinements along the way, this has become one of the main instruments used in Swiss music today. Interlaken has lots of hotel options, but if you're in search of serious indulgence, you'll find it at the Victoria Jungfrau. Done up in a richly ornate style, the landmark property has played host to everyone from the King of Siam to Mark Twain. When the 19th century elite made Interlaken a superstar on the spa circuit, this was where the beautiful people vacationed in style.
As engaging as Switzerland's geographic wonders are, they're just a part of what this country has to offer. The urban centers that punctuate the Alps are fascinating in their own right. We're off to check out the city scene in Zurich.
Zurich, one of Europe's loveliest cities, straddles the river Limmat. It's large enough to offer all the usual big city amenities, but small enough to easily explore. Because Switzerland was neutral in World War II, it avoided the bombing that devastated much of Europe. This city has long attracted writers and intellectuals. For a time, it was home to Lenin, Carl Jung, and James Joyce. And in 1916, here at the Cabaret Voltaire, a group of artists and performers started the Dadaist movement and stunned the art world with their anti-establishment works. No doubt you've heard references to those famous Swiss bank accounts. Well, Zurich joins New York, London, and Tokyo as one of the world's leading centers of high finance. This city's role as a financial player started early on. There was once a Roman customs house here in Lindenhof Square. As a convenient European crossroads, Zurich's fiscal future was bright.
During the Middle Ages, Zurich's merchants built up tremendous wealth. And by the 14th century, the workers' guilds had edged out the nobility and taken control of commerce.
A religious leader during the Swiss Reformation popularized the motto, "Pray and work." It would have a lasting effect on the city. If upscale shopping is your thing, you've come to the right town. The Bahnhofstrasse revels in its reputation as Switzerland's most elegant, not to mention expensive, shopping street. The Swiss believe in quality, and here, quality costs money. If you're in search of designer chic and have money to spare, you'll find no shortage of fashionable choices. On the other hand, if you're holding tight to those purse strings, well, the window shopping is fun too. One of Zurich's hot buys is silk. During the Middle Ages, Italy dominated European silk production, and a strong trade developed between Zurich and the Lake Como area. Later, Italian refugees started a prosperous silk industry here. While silk weaving is for the most part a lost art in Switzerland, a small company called Fabric Frontline is creating something of a revival.
We do this kind of old printing techniques. We print till 26 colors. This is screen printing. This is a very old traditional way to print. I think we're the only in the world who still make these prints.
The vivid colors and prints produced here attract world-famous designers, and the softly shimmering fabrics bring in customers from all across Europe.
When you think of Switzerland, what comes to mind? Spectacular scenery, discreet bankers. Oh, how about watches and clocks?
We're stopping in the Bayer Clock and Watch Museum to learn a little more about this national obsession with timekeeping. Clockmaking has been a big deal here for 500 years. When Calvinist reformers banned the wearing of jewelry, goldsmiths and other jewelers were forced to find a new profession, watchmaking. The Swiss soon became specialists at the craft, and a local inventor developed a perpetual watch, the forerunner to the modern self-winding watch. The Bayer Museum chronicles the story of time, if you will, everything from sundials and hourglasses right up to ultra-modern quartz instruments. Our home in Zurich, the Hotel Ambassador, is a 10-minute walk from the Bahnhofstrasse. This boutique hotel is a favorite with business travelers. Built late in the 19th century, the Beaux Arts-style building features the elegant ornamentation that was so popular in Paris at the time. But modern renovations place it firmly in the 21st century. Public transportation is the fastest and most convenient way to get around Zurich, and the city's trams are easy to use. After buying your ticket at a designated ticket machine, be sure to validate it before boarding your first tram. Trams work largely on the honor system, but inspectors do make spot checks and fines can be steep. Do you think that life without chocolate isn't worth living? Well, then Zurich is your kind of place. The city's premier confectioner, Confiserie Sprungli, beckons with irresistible aromas. One of Sprungli's specialties is their truffle of the day, which they sell for only 24 hours.
They don't produce a big amount so that it can really sell all the truffles at the end of the day. These are the Luxembourgerlies. It's the sweet that made Sprungli famous, worldwide famous. They are crunchy in the beginning, and then you come down to the cream, and then it's very soft and sweet.
The Swiss began making chocolate in the mid-1800s. With plenty of dairy cows and innovative recipe refinements, they succeeded in producing the mouth-watering products on which the Swiss have built a worldwide reputation.
But Zurich's gastronomical delights extend far beyond the cocoa bean. When it comes to food, the Swiss make the most of their German, French, and Italian roots.
One of Zurich's classic restaurants, the famous Kronenhalle, also serves some of the best cuisine. What began as a modest beer hall 150 years ago is now a local institution. And it offers the best views in town, of artwork, that is. No need to visit an art museum when you can see original works by artists such as Marc Chagall, Joan Miró, and Georges Braque, all from the comfort of your own table. Supposedly, a number of painters during their starving artist days traded their work in exchange for free meals. Cap off the day like the locals do at the Apfelhammer Bar. This dark, low-beamed pub has been a beloved Zurich institution for more than 200 years. According to tradition, if you can swing up and wriggle your way through the gap between the beam and ceiling, then your beers are on the house. And that's one way to stay in shape for scaling those alpine summits. Whether in the cities or the countryside, as you travel through Switzerland, you'll discover the power of this small nation of colossal mountains. The alpine vistas will awe you. The thundering waterfalls will thrill you. And the hospitality will charm you. Switzerland is an energizing place to be.
Just breathe in that mountain air. Why, it almost makes me want to yodel. Nah, I'll spare you that. Until next time, I'm Rudy Maxa. Auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, and ciao.